Sorry, my baby is not cooperating.
I hear that. Yeah.
What's a nap time? This is,
that's all right.
This is Bubs.
Hey, what's up, Bubs?
Say hi.
Man, I'm sure a lot has changed since the last time we talked, huh?
Yeah. What's up, bro?
Not too much, man. It's been an interesting life, but it's been a good one. How about you, man? You're in Chicago now, huh?
Yes, sir. Remarried, have a baby. Life's crazy, man.
Wow.
Hey,
Yeah.
Mr. James Retarides.
Yes,
Before
sir.
we get into it, so you basically, a couple things. It's like all worked out perfectly. You have actually written the book on arm wrestling.
Yeah.
How many people have written a book about arm wrestling?
Ernie Jeffries wrote one, I want to say in the early 80s, maybe late 70s. And I think that's it. I think me, and I actually got a call from a guy that I know that is actually a creative writing professor at Boston University. And he was asking me if I'd be willing to do either a text revision or do a second edition. And it's been close to 9 years now since I've written it. So it might be due for that. It might be due for an update, especially since there's been so much new equipment that's come out since that time. So.
Yeah, when I looked it up on Amazon, it said it's called Strong Arm Tactics. It said 2013. Was that?
Yeah.
Is that like?
Yep. That was the first run.
That was the first run. All right.
Yeah.
So, funny thing is, we've known each other for years. And how your name? I was going through my footage, and of course, you and Peter and Christian, you guys all popped into my mind because of obviously you guys hosted awesome events. That when I watch back, they give me a certain feeling, and it's like your name popped into my brain, and then maybe a month or two later, I was scrolling through Facebook like everyone else, and you said something that really caught my mind, and I was like, oh man, I got to reach out. Now that I'm doing podcasts, I got to reach out to James, because you said something to the effect of, and I'm probably butchering it, but
Probably.
you said, sometimes I can't stand the world because of the internet, because of the crazy stuff I have to read on here. But the thing that stands out most is people who are promoting bad technique, like they're experts.
It's bad technique. It's horrible training advice. It's horrible, and look, I'm not the be all end all of trainers. I never pretended to be. I think that there are a bunch of people out there with a tremendous amount of information about how to train for arm wrestling. And I know for a fact that there are alternate paths to similar goals. You can take a different route and arrive. I would imagine that Todd Hutchings training, for example, would be very much different than, maybe some of Devon Larratt's training. And that my training, because I've talked to Herman Stevens, who I look up to immensely as somebody that really understands training. Herman's training and mine are probably very different, but it's alternate paths to the same goal. And it's that's fine. But the showing people horrible technique, the ego lifts where it's just
okay. Before you get into it,
right?
Do you remember the day you woke up and you decided oh my gosh, I can't take it, I'm gonna Facebook, it's driving me nuts? Do you remember specifically, or do you feel that way daily?
No, I don't feel that. Look, I don't feel that way daily. What happens is a lot of times I have a good laugh about it, but once in a while, my friend Jason Otto will send me a link to some arm wrestling group. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah. Interesting story about Jason. I met Jason for the first time at an arm wrestling tournament in New York City in 2000 or 2001. Okay. And then I moved down to Charlotte, and we did this promotion with this radio station that was doing arm wrestling at a place called the Press Box. And he showed up, and it turns out he moved to Charlotte. So we became really good friends since then. That was probably 2007 or 8 at that point. But Jason will send me a link once in a while and be like, you have to watch this. And, he's doing it for comedic purposes, but I'll watch it and I'll just be like, oh, make it stop, please.
Okay. I want to tease this part because I want to kind of end up at the end. So
it's a good place to end up, Gare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we go.
So I like your name just stuck in my mind. Like, as I'm returning to the sport, certain people, you recall their names and it's like, it brings flashes of memories, moments and feelings. And it's like, okay, so you're one of the guys. Then I'm going through a footage and it's a Travis Bagent tournament. Devon Bear wins a 4-wheeler. Yeah. Well, I don't even know. I don't even think I was there. I think Sevon and Bessie sent me the footage or something. And I was like, I'm going through the comments. I posted the video. And I think, honestly, I didn't realize you'd fully stepped away from the sport at any time.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Anyways, I see the comment, oh, that's Juji's coach. And
yeah.
I'm like, what? That makes no sense to me. I didn't.
Right.
So all these things, and I was like, I gotta talk to James. I have so many questions for this man. And then this week we're going through the NAA, and then this week we're going through the NAA, and Peter Milano, he's like, you should talk to James. Peter Milano is the big mouth. He's the guy that, it's easy to go to him because he's so loud.
He's changed a lot, though.
Yeah, I know, but I joke, but I guess on camera you were always in the background on the mic. So, anyways, I think it is a good idea to get your perspective on these tournaments. Now, Peter Milano says, "Oh, we were the originator of the super match," but I kind of was realizing it was a little more nuanced than that. Yeah. I think what you guys really mastered was I realized, oh shit, what they did was they picked really good matches, and then those guys brought like their buddies. And that was part of it. It made for amazing super matches, but also a great open because like when a guy came down from Canada, he brought like 4 guys. Right. And it really made for like an amazing turnout that is hard to duplicate. And you guys did it like repeatedly.
Pete and I would have these conversations, which I thought, were really interesting, especially after the first one. The first one we did, we thought, we'll create a new format and we'll actually put it to a schedule. And it was amazing because Pete kept coming up to me during the event. He's like, we're right on schedule. This is ridiculous. Like within a minute or two, we were right on the schedule that we created and we put on the flyer. And what amazed us was,
what do you mean by schedule? Tell me about that.
So we had a flyer, and on the flyers, there would be a schedule, and it would say, okay, so from this time to this time, there's going to be weigh-ins and registration. And at promptly 1:00, there's not going to be any lag. We're starting super matches. And we're starting with this one. We'll do like the left-handed super matches. Then we'll do the open left hand. And then we'll do the right-handed super matches and then the open right hand. And it was eerie how close we were to the schedule the first time out. And we just sort of looked at each other.
What made you say, let's have a schedule and put it on the flyer? Because I think it's kind of ballsy. Like it's hard it's with an arm wrestling tournament, from what I've seen, it's hard to stick to a schedule.
Yeah.
How do you have the like cojones to say we're going to do that? Because it is hard to stick to a schedule.
Right. Well, I will say this, that, coming up, arm wrestling in the Northeast in the 90s. I'm not going to throw any promoters under the bus, but there were a few events that you would go to that said that they were going to start at 1:00, and it would actually be close to 4 when it would start. And you would just be like, I gotta, whatever this is, I gotta get out of this. Like, this is not enjoyable. Right. Yeah. It's like, we want this to be, it's like, we're going to stick to our word. Our word is going to be our bond. We're going to do this and we're going to stick to it to the best of our ability. And we did. And, you know, the thing that I don't think either one of us predicted was that, number one, you could show up to one of our tournaments and pull the open class, and there could be 20 plus guys in that class, and you could have won your national the year before and not even placed in the top 3, sometimes barely placed the top 6. Number two, the amount of guys that would show up and wouldn't even register after the first one because they knew they didn't have a chance to place.
What?
And then
You've
they'd
had
show up
that?
and watch. Oh, a lot. We'd have guys that would show up and they'd come there to watch the super matches. And I'd even say to them, like, hey, you're a good arm wrestler. Why don't you jump in? And they'd say, I'm not, there's no way I'm placing at this thing. But then the third thing was, and I'm sure you noticed this filming them, that guys would get done with super matches, and the guys that watched those matches would get so charged up that they would have ran through a wall to arm wrestle, you know, like, and that is what really created that sort of electric room, you know, that I don't know. I felt it when I was watching it the other day, when you posted the one from like 15 years ago, you know, I watched it and I was like, wow, like I started to get those same feelings, and I was like, wow, this is actually kind of motivating me to come back and arm wrestle a little bit.
Oh my God!
Like I just felt really charged up by it.
So I because of my kid crying, I missed the intro. James Retarides, welcome to Gary's other arm wrestling show.
Oh, is that what I love that, like, you know, some people I got a baby. You know, this is great. I'm talking to Gary and his child. This is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it could be a podcast about child development.
I got a lot of people messaging me about how unprofessional my look, and I'm like, I like having it be loose. I don't.
Yeah.
When you tell me there's rules, I immediately want to break the rules. So, and because I'm a stay-at-home dad, like this whole arm wrestling thing, my wife, she works from home, but she is in the office. Right. I'm on like baby duty, so I've got to mix arm wrestling. But anyways, I figured this will be my other arm wrestling show. So I had the Beauty and the Beast with Travis, and this will be, because I think this is a great format to catch up with people I don't know the next time I'm going to see you, although I'd love to come down and train with you guys. This is a great opportunity to kind of, so.
Anyways, James, you're on Gary's other arm wrestling show.
Wow. You know what? Honored. And Gary, you could come down and train, man. We got extra bedrooms here if you want to stay a weekend or something. You know, we got a funny crew of guys that get together and train. We're a blast. So we just have a lot of fun.
I would totally love to. Right now, I've mentioned it before. My wife is on COVID. Like, she's like, she's letting me travel, but it's skeptical travel. And I'm like, I mean, I get it. There's a risk, but I want to just live, and it's hard for me to, I get it, but.
Well, you're an extrovert, you know, and, you know, I don't know if it's been so long since we talked, you probably don't even know that I work as a therapist now, you know?
Oh, really?
And
I need some therapy.
Well, I'm your
the
guy,
arm wrestling community would say, I need some therapy. Okay, James, I have to put him down for his nap. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
I'll wait patiently. Yeah. What I was going to say, though, is, you know, as a therapist, especially during COVID, what we're seeing is a lot of people, especially extroverted people like yourself, that are high in openness and extroversion, they're having a hard time because, you know, they get a lot of energy from being around people, you know, and if you're open to new experiences and stuff, you like being out and going into the unknown more. And it's like, you know, extroverted people are struggling a lot during this. Yeah. And you are one of those people.
Yeah. It's funny because my wife, she's introverted, and she's like, I'm at home. Like, I'm fine. And I'm like, it's funny because we are definitely two people on two separate paths. But anyways, your organization, the NAA, tell me the fruits, what you were getting into it, but be a little bit more specific. Did you say to Peter? Did Peter say to you? Like, how did it happen?
I think it ended up being, go ahead.
It was your first organization and your first tournament?
Well, I had put on a couple of tournaments prior to that, but they were with other promotions. I think the first one I put on was in '99 in Milford, Connecticut. And, so I knew I could do it. I knew how to do it. I've always been somebody that's wanted to be involved in the process. That's why I've done so many things, worn so many hats in the sport. So, when I was talking to Pete and we were talking about, we should just put something together that's not been done before, and like really do it up and bring some energy to the Northeast, because, there were a few states that were budding at the time, that were really growing, in terms of the sport of arm wrestling. But Connecticut, for being such a small state, was really thriving. We had a.
And what year is this?
This would have been 2005. Yeah. And
so that was our first event it was like toward the end of the year.
Right.
When how many months out did you have to plan it?
Only a few, but what we really had, the ace in the hole. And this is why, when you tagged me in that thing in Facebook, I said, let's not forget Christian Benny. Christian was the one that had such a fantastic rapport and relationship established with the Black Bear. And because of that, it was like we had a perfect venue and they really wanted to put it on. And it was like, well, look, it's like only one way to find out if this is going to work. Yeah. You know what I mean?
What stands out about that venue is I loved how, while I was filming, I was like 1 foot away from these big windows, and I turn around and there's people walking by going, what's going on in there?
Right.
Like,
do you remember how
the arm wrestling is all exciting, and then it was so exciting, people would walk by and they'd want to know what's happening. Right. And it was like, I thought it was a cool, intimate, just big enough to fit all of us. Right. And it was a great vibe.
Yeah. And the people looking in from outside on the sidewalk, do you remember how they kind of clogged up the sidewalk at one point, and people were like complaining because they had to walk out in the street, and those windows opened up into the street? And I remember, being up on in the DJ booth and looking out and being like, my gosh, like, I can't believe there's this much interest. Because, look, you and I both know, prior to that, the majority of arm wrestling tournaments you went to, it was just the only people interested in it were arm wrestlers.
Yeah. And like the ballroom hotel location, it's hard to get other passerbys with that kind of environment. It's not exactly, I don't know. Ballrooms are hard to get excited about. Just like in general. So I all this talk about people wanting to take arm wrestling out of the bar, it's like, it can be awesome. I
get it though. I get it. It's like, there's been a lot of people that have really fought for the legitimacy of the sport, because they want the sport, the sport they love, to be considered legitimate. And they feel like if you have it in a bar, it's going to be basically on par with darts or billiards or something like that. And that these are actually really good strength athletes, and they deserve to get some notoriety and the right kind of attention, and it's like, I get that. But by the same token, it's like, if you put on an event in a club like that, you have, owners that are willing to host you because, they're going to make a fortune. They got people that are going to sit there, weigh-ins the night before and eat and drink. And then the next day they might eat 2 or 3 meals there and drink all night and hang out for an after party on top of the regular club goers, so that's, to them, it's a no-brainer. It's like, here, take a few $1,000s. Or you have, you've always had the beer distributors that have said, if you put your logo on our t-shirts, we'll hand you this much money, for awards. And it's like, it's made it easier for promoters. It's not as easy, because it's like, if you're going to run something in a ballroom or a convention center, a lot of times, you have to do a lot of the legwork to get sponsorship. Whereas with bars and clubs, the sponsorship is just there. It's just, it's not that hard to ask for and to get. So
when I'm watching that video, what stands out in my mind was, I'm watching the video, awesome, and I'm like, oh, Tom Nelson. Tom Nelson's from California. What's he doing in the Northeast? Like, how do you get, like, one of the unique things about your guys' tournaments is you had some guests that I wouldn't expect, like random. Oh, wow. You must have gone out of your way to get here.
My history with Tom Nelson is so unique, you know, and like pretty much only Tom and I, and maybe a few other people know this, but he and I met at an event in Tahoe, and I'm going to butcher the year because I can't remember what it was, but he was a novice pulling the 242 and I was in the open 154, and we were pulling in the straps, and I beat him, and he flipped out and he started slamming the table.
What?
While I was
Nelson?
attached to him. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, what's weird is like, you know,
Say
Ken
it ain't
Hughes,
so, buddy.
Right. Ken Hughes came over and was like, you know, embarrassed by the way Tom was acting. And he said something to him. So flash forward about 4 or 5 years. I haven't seen Tom Nelson since then. We're at Mohegan Sun, and I'm just heckling him, you know, because part of me, you know, I was young. I had a whole bunch of attitude, and I'm heckling him, and I'm actually trying to goad him into a fight. I'm a lot bigger than 154 at that point too. And then, you know, he comes over to me at one point. He goes, "Hey man," he says, "What's your issue with me?" And he had no idea who I was. He didn't remember that incident.
He don't remember?
But this is Tom Nelson, and this is one of the reasons why I like Tom. He says, he goes like this to me. He says, "Man, I'm sorry." He goes, "I had no idea that was you." He goes, "And let me make it up to you." He goes, "Where are you going after this?" I said, "I'm going to Tim's bar." Tim Breslin had a bar pretty close to Mohegan Sun. He goes, "You're not drinking." He goes, "You're not buying a beer tonight." He says, "I got all your beers tonight." And, you know, we became friends after that. And like, yeah, look, I mean, Tom, most people would understand that Tom's antics aren't exactly my cup of tea. You know what I mean? But exactly. I also have a profound respect for Tom for more than one reason. Number one, drug-free. Number two, he would arm wrestle anyone. And that was the great thing about having him in a super match. Number three, he trained as hard as anyone out there. He loved the sport. He had an unbelievable amount of passion. And once you got to know him, he was one of the more generous people that I've met. And it's like, people don't realize that because I think they see Tom and, you know, he looks like the poster child for like borderline personality disorder to him. You know what I mean? But, you know, underneath a lot of that exterior and that attitude and that angst, I mean, it's really just a lot of angst, is this really, really genuine good dude, you know?
Yeah.
And I wish more people could see that.
Yeah. For all the people that they see Tom getting kind of explosive, he is one of the first guys that will later acknowledge.
Yep.
He can get, I mean,
yeah,
he's, what's that creature that's and
like the honey badger?
Yeah. They don't really, I mean, he's just one of those guys that is capable of damaging, and sometimes he's not in control. But then when he's in control, he's in control, and he's like, "Yeah, I get it." Well, that's crazy, Tom.
You know, when you work with people in anger management, what you see a lot of is people that, you know, their negative emotions control them rather than the other way around. And then once they get a handle on everything, you know, then, you know, all of this guilt and shame comes up, and they feel bad. And it's like, then they will come and authentically apologize to you with like real deep sincerity. And I mean, I don't know. Even though you can see him at our events several times flipping out about rules or whatever it is, all it really took sometimes was for me to call him over and be like, "Tom, come on." You know what I mean? And he'd be like, "I'm sorry. Fuck, I'm sorry." You know what I mean?
You know, and the funny thing is, as a camera person, you know, you love it when someone changes up the monotony of a moment. Like, I forgot about any of that. Load, no, you promised me load. You promised. And I was like, "Oh,
I forgot about it too." Yeah.
Leave it to Tom to remind everyone. It's like, but can you just tell me real quick what? I don't get what he's talking about. What is there such a thing as having a load tournament and a no load tournament?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Keep the show. You have to load.
Where's the load? No. Hey, you told me there was loading, so did Pete. I put money down for a loading tournament. Now I get up here and refs are telling me no.
You know, the cool thing, and you used to be able to identify arm wrestlers from the East Coast in the 90s because they had this really big brachial radialis muscle, you know, and the thing was like, if you went to like, say, a AAA tournament, you know, especially in Connecticut where Al Varela used to run them, you would have to sit there and you would be loading up at least 50% before the go. So it took a lot of, yeah. Like you didn't have strategy. That dead load. You didn't have that. Nobody dead loaded. You know, it was like, I can remember several times being up on stage and hearing an official, hearing a referee say to somebody who's like, I can't match their back pressure. And the referee would say, well, that's too bad. You're probably going to lose. Yeah. Right. And then at some point, and this was probably around 2000, maybe a little after, you started seeing people dead load more, you know, or if you were from the East Coast and you went out West, you know, and you would just naturally grab people and load back. And they would be like, you know, giving you this sort of dead fish hand. You were like, what is this? You know what I mean? It would take you out of sorts, but yeah, there used to be a rule.
Did Peter promise him a load? Like, I didn't realize that was something you asked a promoter. Like, it sounded weird to me. Yeah, he was like, promise that.
Right.
It's unusual to have someone say that, right?
Well, you can agree on terms. You know, I mean, that's the thing is like a lot of times you'll have people that will agree on terms in a match. It's like, all right, well, this isn't going to be WAF rules or WAL rules or whatever. This is going to be, you know, these kind of rules. The only thing is we're going to allow this, you know, or all matches go to the straps or something like that, you know. Because
Mike Gould said, why would I give you something before the go? It makes no sense. And I was like, that's a good point. Like, anyways, I just thought that scenario was really interesting because
well, it's possible that conversation took place though, because I will say that, you know, Pete took care of the majority, 90+% of the super matches, and my thing was, you know, it's like if you know, day before, it was like I had to do a lot of the more administrative tasks and get everything ordered and announce the event and make sure the brackets were running right and that everyone was taken care of. And Pete wanted the thing to be, once the day of the event shows up, he just wanted to be able to sit back and not have to deal with anything, you know? So he probably managed whatever the stipulations were of that match with them.
So the deal was he was the matchmaker. Mm-hmm. He'd do the stuff beforehand, then you'd handle kind of the day of running.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
You were cool with that?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know,
like he was obviously a good matchmaker. Was that just Peter? Like, do you have to like practice? Like, how?
Well, I mean, Pete's a good salesman. Pete's a good salesman. He's got, you know, he has all the tools of a good salesman, and you know, he understood how to talk to people and use very instrumental language to get people to agree to things. We'll put it that way. And me, you know, it's funny. I told Pete, you know, and I remember the first time, he probably wouldn't remember this, but when I said to him, you know, I'll announce the events because I want to do like a play-by-play kind of thing. He looked at me kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know about that, but
really
it worked out.
He did that.
Yeah, pretty much. It was kind of like, because we were talking about this other guy, Brian Lapila, potentially doing it because he announced some events, but he never did any play-by-play, and nobody was really doing play-by-play at that point and giving sort of, you know, talking about sort of the intricacies of the match. And
65 years old, Norman is holding strong. Norman is flying across the table, but Norman is holding on. This is a war. Table number 1, table 2, Norm Devon is throwing Chucha out.
Yeah, so I was like, well, why don't we try that? Why don't we give it a shot? It was, you know, the first one was very experimental.
You know what I appreciate about your announcing, and I don't know if you've ever heard this before. When I'm going through the older videos, I'm trying my best to figure out who's arm wrestling, and sometimes I don't know everyone. Right. And now I've been doing this for let's say 4 months now, and your clip has been the most easiest because you said the guys' names so much. And I was
Right.
like, oh my God, it's so helpful, because you would always be like, Gabe McCarty, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh man, look at it. And you would mention their names. And like, I, for the life of me, couldn't remember Rob Sasso.
Right.
And I actually messaged somebody. I was like, I know him. What is his name? And I was like, I should have no doubts. James Retarides came through. And he's like, Rob Sasso. And I was like,
Right.
yes, you've made it so easy for me. I mean, it still takes some time to write down everyone's names, but
Yeah.
I probably put far too much effort in trying to name everyone in the description, but it's like this little OCD thing I have. But I would just like to thank you, because of all my older clips, you've said the athletes' names more than anyone else.
Right.
And,
Well, I appreciate it. Hey, I
So-
appreciate because I've always tried, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I always put in as much effort as I could researching guys when they pulled and really wanting to make sure that I gave those guys their moment to shine. So
regarding, like, when I think of putting on a tournament, I think of like, oh, I'd need some sponsorship money. Like that's first thing I gotta be able to, like, if the entry fees don't cover. And I think about your guys' events, and one thing that stands out is Peter Milano saying, you know, these guys are putting up their own money. And I'm like,
yeah.
what, was that a new concept back then too? Having guys front?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't see it very much. I mean, I don't know if anyone else had ever done that before. What I will say is this: is that what we would usually do is we would have a certain amount of money that would be given to us by a sponsor that we could use. Like, you came to the one that I did in North Carolina at the Extreme Ice Center in 2009. That was, no one had to put their own money up. That was all sponsored. You know, I got sponsors individually for the $1,000 matches, and you know, and even, you know, for what was it? Oh yeah, even for Mei Lin's match, and I only say even for hers because everyone kept dropping out of it. You know, we had a bunch of people drop out of it, and then I remember Cindy Looney was nice enough to jump in and sort of be the sacrificial lamb for Mei Lin. But yeah, I mean, Pete would basically do this. It's like, all right, so these are our headline matches, and, you know, we're going to give people, the winner of this much money, you know, and then it was, all right, well, if you want to be on this card, if you really want to be on this card, and you'd be surprised how many people were willing to contact us and be like, please put me on this card. Yeah. You know, I remember having a phone conversation, and I think you'll get a kick out of this because I'm not going to talk about this person very much. All right, we'll put it that way. But I remember having a phone conversation with Chris Gobby. Well, just hear me out. He had called me up, and I remember him being unbelievably respectful and really wanting a match with Benji Dwyer, like really wanting it, you know? And I remember, you know, kind of being like, well, yeah, I mean, I kind of knew who he was, but I didn't know who he was. And then I found out that he was a national champion and everything. And I was like, well, that might be a really good matchup. And then I ran it by Pete, and, you know, they managed to work out the details of their match, and then it worked out well. But we would have people all the time saying, can I please get on your card? Sometimes they would be like, hey, I've already messaged so-and-so, and, you know, we're ready to go for this much money at your event, and we'll put up our own money, you know? And it was
even
like, wow.
Back then for your first event?
No, not for the first one. No, the first one was still more of a novelty thing. I think for the first one, Pete kind of, like I said, Pete was very good with instrumental language, getting people to agree to do stuff like that. So
just for the audience out there, if you're just catching up, this is James Retarides. I didn't realize until on Facebook that you're a world record holder in some grip strength. We'll get into that. Mm-hmm. Back in my time during that heyday, I mean, a very well-known promoter of arm wrestling in the Northeast, cool guy, great arm wrestler, like known for all these things. But if you're just now watching, right now we're sharing their first event, but we're going to be sharing on ARMTV all these old videos of all these tournaments, and there's some amazing arm wrestling. If you're interested, I'm going to drop some links in below. I probably already showed a little bit of footage, but go and check out so you know you can marry the footage with the interview, because there's some great arm wrestling in it. And one thing I wanted to ask you about this last clip that I put, since you brought up Chris Gabi.
Mm-hmm.
So I filmed thousands of matches. I cannot recall, and this is nothing against Chris Gabi, that situation where Benji switches up and dives in on him.
Yeah.
The look on Chris's face of like,
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
How do I, it was like, I can't recall that happening ever before, where somebody gets pinned and looks absolutely like, I don't realize how that just happened. And what do I do? And then it happens again. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is Jerry Cadorette, Travis, they arm wrestled at that same tournament. Mm-hmm. And that's Jerry's move.
Yeah.
Was in that time period, was that like a new thing for arm wrestlers? Like, why was Chris Gabi so shocked by this move?
Because despite the fact that Chris had won a national championship, he was relatively green. Like, you know, there's ways that you pull against that move. And, you know, if you're trying to collect a hit, or if you're trying to top roll through it backwards, like a lot of times you're in trouble. I mean, and he didn't know what to do with that move. And Benji, like, people don't know Benji's name now. And I mean, there's so many new people to arm wrestling that they're not going to know me. They're not going to know a lot of people we're talking about. But, you know, Benji was, to be honest with you, I think I learned more about arm wrestling from Benji Dwyer than maybe anyone else. Because my thing was, rather than look at the guy who's a genetic freak or is all roided up that's winning matches, let me find the guy with the worst genetics. Okay, this little tiny Whopper Jr. hands, you know what I mean? This short forearm who weighs 140 pounds and is blasting all these big dudes. Let me talk to him about training, because here's a guy that knows what he's doing, and you could watch him and see what a technical expert he was. And yeah, Benji was, you know, so smart on the table, you know, and deceptively strong and fast. And, you know, despite the fact that his hand was so small, that thing was like a claw, you know, and, you know, also had a big bench press too. A lot of people don't know that. You know, if you looked at him, you wouldn't think so. And, you know, people say, oh, don't bench press for arm wrestling and all that other stuff. Some guys that have especially a very strong press move like that, you know, they're pushing a lot of weight with their chest and shoulders. So
you mentioned some of our audience may not know these guys. When you watch that clip, can you ballpark it at all? Have like that list of all those guys in that your open classes? How many guys are still arm wrestling here 15 years later?
No, it would be hard for me to. I mean, you see a few people, but like for me, you know, the reason why I think it was so nostalgic for me is I'm looking at people and everyone looks so young, you know, and, you know, I mean, you know, Reggie Ward passed, right?
Yeah.
And there's this one part where I'm busting his balls in the mic and stuff. And a lot of people don't know this, that Reggie Ward was a colossal ball buster. I mean, so quick-witted and funny, you know? And so, you know, seeing him, you know, alive and well and strong and winning, and, you know, it's hard. It's hard. You know, you look back and you see that, and, you know, you miss guys like that. And you know, you mentioned like guys like Rob Sasso. I used to love going up to Schenectady, New York, and training with Rob and Scott Latella, Benji Dwyer, and Ray Darling, who also passed, you know. And it's like, yeah, you start watching some of these videos, even the Harper's Ferry event you posted. There were a few people there that I was like, oh my God, that person died and this person died.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, yeah, you look back and there's this element of nostalgia, but it's also bittersweet, you know?
Yeah. It is very sad. There's another comment on Facebook. You mentioned something about trying to have a squirrel and a joke trophy, or you guys trying to think, what was this about?
So we were going through this trophy catalog. Okay. And at the time, like, everybody wanted those big lager trophies, you know, those, or I don't know if you can see the arms behind me, you know, or these sculpted arms. Everybody wanted those, right? So we're going through this catalog that had them. and like the smallest trophy in the catalog, and it was the goofiest looking shit you ever saw, was this squirrel that was like holding this acorn like this. And I looked at Pete and I said, what the fuck is this for? Like, when would you give somebody a trophy of a squirrel? Is it a squirrel hunting thing? And if it was a squirrel hunting thing, would the squirrel be sitting there holding all daintily? So I was like, I forgot who it was. I think it was Tim Bresnan and John Brzenk that were pulling. And I was like, that's our headline match. What we have to do is, other than giving this person the money for winning the match, we have to give them this squirrel. Please.
And I don't remember. Did we do this? Did you give away the
No, it didn't happen. We chickened out.
Man.
I don't know who chickened out. It was probably Pete, to be honest with you. Because I would have absolutely enjoyed it a great deal.
That first tournament, did you need a particular amount of bodies to make it happen again? Like, what were your expectations? Did you know? Like, you made a Northeast Arm Wrestling Association also.
Right.
So it was like, they're a big picture. Oh, we're going to do this a million times. And like, we didn't glorious dreams tied to.
I know this is going to sound weird because I think that, a lot of people don't think this way. But for me, it's never been about money or attention or notoriety or anything like that. It's just been like the quality of what it is that we're doing. And I was like, let's just put on the best damn tournaments that people have ever been to, and that's why we started it. And after we put on the first, I remember being so excited, and Pete was too. And we were like, we're going to do this quarterly. You know what I mean? We thought about doing it monthly.
What does that mean, quarterly? That means 4 times?
Yeah, like 4 times, like every 3 months. Yeah. But we thought about doing it even less than that more than that, because we were just so amped up. But we thought about, like, if we do it quarterly, maybe it won't saturate as much. And then, a lot of what happened was people saw how much our format worked and then adopted it. So then it was like, people were, to borrow a phrase from John Wilson, people were pulling super matches at the Skeeter's barbecue hut. You know what I mean? It was like, all of a sudden it was just, everybody was pulling in a super match. And,
I had someone just bust my balls the other day because I posted Derek Smith's first super match, and it was like, 2 amateur. And it's like, did I water down the terms? Like, they said they were pulling a super match. It's like, so right. Super matches, the word super matches, you're saying we should save it for elite big matches.
Well, one of the things, and I've talked to Christian Binney about this a lot, we both kind of agree. Yeah, super match is elite big match between 2 guys that are, at the top of their class or the top of the heap, and they're, in their country, or, or they're 2 of the better guys in the country, or it's just a matchup that we think would be awesome and people would want to see. Great example would have been back then, Chad Silvers and Bill Sinks. I had more than one person say to me, Chad Silvers is going to destroy Bill Sinks. That's a stupid match. And I was like, no, you don't. You're not seeing this for what it is. Chad is the fastest guy that I've seen on the table. Bill has got better endurance than anyone I've ever seen. Yeah. If Bill stops him once, the whole super match is over. And Bill ended up winning 3-0, but it was such an intriguing matchup because people wanted to see what was going to happen.
I mean, nobody destroys Bill Sinks. Bill Sinks camps out, and he's there for a long time. I mean,
right.
Anyways, do you got any insides that maybe I don't remember about the Jared Cadorette Travis match, how that came to be? Did you guys realize it was going to be such a big, crazy? Like,
yeah. The $15,000 match. I remember Scott Amadeo wanting a big part of it, and I'm not gonna talk much about Scott Amadeo either. All right, to let you know. Yeah. But Scott was a New York guy who was actually at some point a decent arm wrestler, but I'll leave that. We'll just say I don't know how he got his money. We'll just put it that way. But he had money. And, he always wanted to be in the middle of things. And he was backing up Travis. He was really attracted to Travis's brand of talk and arm wrestling.
I mean, did that
Jerry,
match start off at like the other ones where it was like 1,000 and then someone upped it?
Yeah.
Or was it immediately big?
It actually became really, it got bigger and bigger and bigger until it inflated, and it almost didn't happen, you know? And I don't know, look, I don't want to dig up old stuff, but Travis and I really did not get along back then, you know? And I'll be honest with you, I didn't want anything to do with it, you know?
Really?
And Pete and Christian were like, James, this match has to happen. Like, please, you know? And Pete, you know, to Pete's credit, he was like, James, if you don't want it to happen, it won't happen. And I said, look, I said, it can happen. It's fine. I said, I'm not happy with it. You know, I know Travis and I had a few heated exchanges on the phone, you know, prior to it, but just over a lot of stuff. I don't think, you know, he and I are just very antithetical in our approaches. I don't think we're very similar people, but by the same token, it's like, you know, I mean, it's water under the bridge. I think. I mean, I wouldn't think there'd be any pent up animosity still, but you know, I mean, he and I didn't get along at that time at all, you know. So
hey, let me ask you a question. The comments on that match, so many comments. I don't know what it is. 7 out of 10 comments are related to
elbows,
reffing.
Right.
Did you guys know that this is gonna be like who? I can't remember. Was it Chris Ganji?
And
Keith Mich-
and you had nothing to do.
Did they know when maybe you don't know, but let's say I'm Chris Ganji and someone, you guys call me up and you're like, hey, I need you to ref Jerry and Travis. Did they know what that meant when they said yes?
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. And this is the part I think that people don't know, is that both Travis and Jerry said before the match, if someone doesn't gain an advantage on an elbow foul, don't call it. Let us pull. And because of that, obviously Keith and Chris saw the elbow fouls. You know what it's kind of like? The recent video of Michael Todd and Devon pulling in my garage there?
Yeah.
Do you know how much shit I got because I wasn't calling elbow fouls on Michael Todd? When I'm saying to the person across the table from me, how's his elbow? Because when you're down here, you can't see the elbow on this side, but I could see Devon's elbow coming off like 9-10 times. And I said, are we going to do anything about the elbow?
Wait, hold on.
So I get a message. I get a message from some fake. I get a message from some fake ass person. You know, somebody made up an account on Facebook just to send me a message that says, yes, and I quote, if I knew where you lived, I would roll a grenade under your vehicle.
No, you lied.
Devon. I swear. Right.
No.
And I'm like, you know what I said? I was like, this is the funniest threat I've ever received in my life. Thank you. I actually really enjoyed that. Roll a grenade under my car. I like it.
Oh my God, what a segue.
It's got a panache.
That was the perfect segue. Holy shit. I'm watching the video just like everyone else, and I can hear you walking through it. It's like, okay, they hadn't really made it official particular things. And you're like, so they're arm wrestling. And you can see plain as day, James going, so what are we doing about elbow? Are you on the elbow? Yes, we're not on elbows. Are we? You're processing in real time what it's like. Oh my God. I loved how you can almost get the feeling like you were saying, oh shit, I can't believe I volunteered for this shit. Like,
hell with the elbow. We're going with it. Hell with the elbow.
Yeah, because, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, is somebody going to ref this? Are we doing a go? And then everyone's looking at me and it's like, all right,
I'll ref it.
You know, no one knew it was happening. I mean, it was like, as far as I knew, Tom contacted me and said, hey, do you mind if we film something with Michael Todd at your house? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then Michael Todd contacts me and he says, hey, I don't want to do anything too strenuous. You know, my left is shot right now. My My hip is screwy, and that's funny because my hip is screwed up, but that's a whole other story. So we were sharing stories about our bum hips on the phone, you know, and talking about our digestive issues because we're two old men, you know. And then out of the blue, Devon shows up, you know, dressed like I don't know, like a drunken old idiot. He's carrying somebody in my neighborhood called the cops on him because he was out by the head of the homeowners association's house with a bottle of wine in a brown paper bag, walking around barefoot in a suit and a really bad wig and bad makeup on. And, you know, he's filming, and obviously the police are going to show up, and they did. Right. So this is the backdrop for all of this. It was pretty surreal.
And when, at that point, when are you saying when Devon Larratt's walking into your garage, this is the first time you're hearing about this?
The only one who knew about it was Tom, you know, and I felt bad. I genuinely felt bad because I told Michael we didn't have to do anything strenuous. Yeah. And like, even if you guys if you just wanted to like pretend pull or something, like you know what I mean? Like, I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He literally asked you point blank. I think the way it happened ended up being perfect. Like,
right. Well, I mean, funny
with what's happened to Michael Todd's channel he's exploded since that match and the Juji stuff. Yeah. I think it's perfect. So I have to ask a question. How did you become, okay, you stepped away from arm wrestling at some point? 2012,
February. Yep. After the Alabama States.
You decided to write a book and then say la vie.
Well, I went to Korea to do a seminar. They did a seminar every year. I was the first one to do one out in Seoul. That was fantastic. I had a great time. But, you know, the only thing they asked of me was to put together some training materials. So I put together a pretty good sized PDF with visuals and explanations of moves and training materials. Oh. And then when I got done with that, I was like, actually Sung Min, he didn't expect me to put all that together. And he was like, this
Sung
Min
be a good
book. Yeah.
Is he still around?
Yep.
I forgot about Sung Min. Oh my
gosh. They're
doing
doing fantastic out in Korea. They were actually a big part of that movie Champion, that Warner Brothers movie that they filmed out there. They were a big part of that. And some of the Korean arm wrestlers that were in my seminar in 2012 are in that movie now. Yeah. So, and some of them have become really good arm wrestlers too. So
that's how the seed was planted for producing a book.
Yeah.
Wow. So they invite you over to a seminar and you really pull out all the stops, researching all the.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was so unbelievably grateful. I mean, you know, someone does that for me. I try to express, like, I just believe in reciprocity. You know, it's like if somebody invites me to do something like that, I'm so unbelievably touched. Like I'm going to put in my all for them. And that's what I did.
And what the ultimate finished product, the book, Strong Arm Tactics, what percentage was the PDF of, let's say?
It was a very expanded version of the PDF. So the PDF was probably not even a third of it, you know, because I took a lot of time to write everything out. I had to research tendon development, which was hard because, you know, there haven't been any research studies done, like empirically reviewed research studies done on the development, you know, on arm wrestling in general. So, you know, I had to look at studies on the development of other types of tendons. And, you know, what you could see a lot of was the development of tendon strength, specifically Achilles tendon strength in sprinters. So a lot of what I had to do is kind of adapt that knowledge. And, you know, the really good thing is that there's a lot of stuff out there on hand strength, you know.
I feel bad because I kind of got away from before we get back on the book, which I want to do. How many NAA events did you guys hold over how many years?
All right. I don't know the count. I'm just going to be honest with you.
You don't remember?
No, but I will say that we started in 2005, and the last event that we put on, that was an NAA event, because I put on several when I moved to North Carolina, but the last NAA event that we put on was 2010 in White Plains, New York. The headliner at that event was Don Underwood and Ron Bath, and Don Underwood. I actually had to pick up from the airport in White Plains and roomed with me, and that was a very interesting night.
Yeah,
that was a very interesting night. Yeah. No, I don't want to go into it. We'll just put it this way. Don, I had no idea that he gave me a bunch because he was selling a lot of Top Roll stuff. And I think he felt bad that he went all rock star in my room with Bill Logsdon and some other people. So I didn't realize this till I got home, but I got home and I opened up my bag and there was all this Top Roll gear in there, you know.
Are you saying, just between you and I, we don't need to go into details, but are you saying, James, that you have a Don Underwood hotel room story like I do? You're saying you have one of those?
I can't imagine that it would be much different. Yeah.
Oh my!
Right.
Don Underwood, I listened to your podcast on Uncle John. You said you're walking the straight line. I'm glad you're. But you gave us some memories, sir, with the
right.
We have some stories that Don Underwood probably wouldn't want to hear, but
right.
We have memories of you, buddy. So I forgot one more point. You, as a promoter, what percentage of, so when I just host an open tournament, no stress. You come. Super matches, cards, flyers, schedules. You mentioned the word drop out. How much did you have to deal with that? And was it a deal breaker as a promoter, like where you just quit? Like, I can't deal with, I get excited about Bob, and then Bob's excited, and then Bob disappears.
Oh,
did that happen a lot?
Innumerable. We had one who called me in the morning, who was clearly high, drunk, like all of the above, probably. And I was like, is everything all right? And he was like, yeah, I'm just getting on a plane. And I was like, yeah, but you don't live anywhere close to here, and the tournament's starting in a half hour.
What?
Right. And the other person traveled internationally to get here.
Oh, I feel like I remember on video dealing with people not being there.
So often.
Like,
often.
Where's
right.
Like,
but we always made it work, I mean, it was stressful. Yeah. The hardest thing about promoting any kind of event is that, you have a bunch of people who say they're going to come, and then you have all these cancellations during the week of, and then you start thinking, well, man, maybe this event isn't going to be that great. But then you're always unbelievably surprised the day of who does show up, who didn't say anything about it. They're just there. And so it always worked out, I mean, it never felt like it was going to.
I can't wait to get to more videos because they bring back that nostalgic, oh my God, it was so much fun. I have a question. How are you on time?